1078 officer in need.
What's up, guys? It's Matt from the 1078 Project. Hey, if you're new to the organization, a little bit about us. The 1078 Project is a non-profit organization that's been founded and developed by law enforcement officers who have been involved in critical incidents and officer-involved shootings. Our goal at the 1078 Project is to provide mental, spiritual, and practical support to law enforcement officers as they navigate the difficult times surrounding an officer-involved shooting. With that being said, let's dive into today's episode, and I'll see you on the other side, boys. Today's guest is a former DEA Task Force officer, was a regional drug task force officer for 6 years, an FTO for 21 years, a firearms instructor for 19 years, and a crime scene technician for 10 years, totaling at 26 years of law enforcement experience. So we shouldn't run out of things to talk about today. He's a coworker of mine, an overall good dude. Today's guest is Charlie Niel. Dude, I had no idea that you've been a cop for 26 years. You don't look old enough to be a cop 26 years.
I am 52, about to be 53 in 7 days. So
no way. So you're close.
I am close.
So close.
2 years this month.
So close, man.
And I am ready to go.
Yeah.
A lot has changed in all these years, you know?
Yeah.
It's a big difference from what it was when I started back in 96.
Yeah, a lot of it's for the worst, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really is.
It's such a weird thing.
We've lost a lot of our leverage on the street and things we could do.
Oh, yeah. Everything is just scrutinized to the max.
I know.
It makes the job so much harder to enjoy.
It does. It does make it hard to enjoy because it used to be, we'd all go out there and be gung-ho and knew that, if something happened, the city would have your back, or, your sergeant would have your back. That ain't true anymore.
It just seems like there's just so much Monday morning quarterbacking, not necessarily even from the police department side of things, but just society in general.
It's society in general, and I think sometimes the police department jumps in on that train, the higher up does.
Sometimes they go into self-preservation mode.
They do. That's very true. Yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
It's like, well, we have to do something about this. We can't just...
Right. We can't just let it go.
Technically, he was wrong. He shouldn't have done that, even though the person, spit on him and did all this other stuff. But he did do this. Yeah, so...
Yep, very true.
I can only imagine the city cops and the county, St. Louis County
I really can't imagine being a city cop. You wonder why their numbers and that are where they are.
I just read something the other day that said they were 300 and something short.
Yeah.
Oh. And that's after starting a really significant recruiting process.
When I was in DEA, we worked with one of the guys with St. Louis City in the group, and he said in the armory they had 480 pistols not issued, which means there were 480 people down.
And that was a while back, though.
That was a while back. Yeah, that was in 2017, 18, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So they've been short for a while.
It's even more so
And
now,
he said they're hiding that number, which is probably closer to the 500 mark when they're saying 3. He always thought it was closer to 5.
Somebody sent me a picture of their quartermaster room.
Yeah.
Stacks.
Oh, I
stacks
can imagine the equipment they have just sitting there.
Stacks of just uniforms.
It's
all the guys turning their stuff in.
It's a revolving door sometimes.
Look at how many guys we've hired from City over the last, 6 months. I want to say it's 6 or something.
That's been a trend since the mid-2000s that we've been hiring city cops. Mm-hmm. A lot of them can't adjust from what they went to our place, so that was a big change for them, and they didn't stay there for that,
It is. It's a weird...
It's a big different dynamic, which you come from down there to out here.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more freedom down there to just do whatever you really want to do.
Exactly. I think you're 100%.
It's like bosses at where we work. Mm-hmm. They want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. Down there, it's like, you don't call me, I won't call you.
Right. Exactly.
We'll get through the rest of this shift, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Before we dive into a bunch of police stuff, though, let's get to know you a little bit. I specifically try. Part of our goal here is to humanize cops. Mm-hmm. And there's Charlie the cop, but there's also Charlie the person. And I think it's important that our audience and people realize that cops are humans and not just robots. So one way that we do that is kind of just chronologically going through your life. So Did you grow up in Missouri?
No, I grew up in right across the river, the big river, in Collinsville, Illinois.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We moved around Collinsville quite a bit or not Collinsville, but Illinois when I was a kid.
Yeah.
We lived in Collinsville. We lived in Dupo. We lived in, what's that little town we lived in up there? Macomb, Illinois. Oh. We lived there for a while.
Was that where I thought that was Macomb, Illinois, where the Rams used to?
Yes, that's where they had their practice facility.
Yeah, I went there.
Yeah, that's where they used to hold their preseason practice and all that.
Yeah, I met Marshall Falk there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why were you guys moving all over the place?
Because my mom's husband at that time was a manager. I don't know if it was a gas station chain at that time, and he would get transferred around a lot, so we ended up moving a lot. Okay. And it was one of those relationships where, they would be together, they wouldn't be together, and, it was back and forth a lot. So.
Okay. Was your dad in the picture at all?
My dad and my mom divorced when I was 2, and my dad, I always knew who he was and saw him, but he really wasn't in my life very much.
Okay.
Not until I got much older. Probably until 15 or so.
Really?
It was really when I developed a real relationship with him.
Did you, growing up as a kid, did you have any animosity towards your dad for that?
No, not really. My mom was an amazing single mom, the year she did that. And, how she raised a family. We lived in a trailer park. That's why we moved around. We took the trailer everywhere. But she worked at Walmart as a single mom and made ends meet and took care of me.
No way.
So, how in the world do you not appreciate your mom for that, right?
Yeah, I just think it's so awesome to hear stories like that because a lot of times people think cops come from the super privileged lifestyle.
Exactly. I came from the bottom, all right? I'm talking in the 80s, we had a 69 Plymouth Valiant, That was our newest car, so.
No way.
We grew up pretty poor.
Brothers and sisters?
From my mom's third husband, all right, I was 11 when they met. Is that right, 11? 10 or 11. Anyway, it was in there. And I got a stepbrother and stepsister.
Okay.
And so my stepbrother's 8 years older than me. Okay. And he's always kind of been my hero because, he's a really cool dude, always growing up, always had cool cars, and that. But he joined the Marine Corps. And when he got married, his wife said, "You fight a great job." Great job wasn't out there, so he joined the Marine Corps. And he did 30 years in the Marine Corps.
No way.
Yes. And then my older stepsister, she was 3 years older than me. And, she lived with us for a while, and she went through some addiction issues and all that. And before she met a really great guy, moved to Tennessee and had a family. But, and then my family is very diverse. So my next youngest sister, she was born when I was 14. So you're talking, my brother's 8 years older than me. She's 14 years younger. My parents surprised themselves with another one when I was 18 years old.
Oh my goodness.
So, we had a very diverse, spread out family.
Holy cow. How many times was your mom married? Was it 3?
3. Yep, 3 times.
All right.
Yep.
So I'm guessing one was your dad?
First one was my dad. And my mom was right out of high school when they got married.
Really?
She literally graduated in May. They were married in December.
Holy
I was born in May. So, you know what happened there.
Yeah.
Right. So they started off in Collinsville. And my grandfather was a very big builder in that area. He was a general contractor, built a lot of apartment complexes, homes. They actually did an article in the paper one time, the man that built half of Collinsville, because it was him.
Really?
Yeah, he built and used to name streets after his kids, and that he had 9 kids. My mom was number 7 of 9.
Dang.
So that was pretty cool, And he was.
It's a lot of kids.
Yeah, so they started off in an apartment right below my grandparents' house. He had an apartment complex there, and started off right there.
No way.
Yep.
Did you ever look up into? I'm guessing your stepdads. Did you ever look up to any of those guys? Were your relationships pretty solid?
My stepdad. My mom's third husband was an amazing guy, great father, great guy. Still have a great relationship with him.
How old were you whenever?
I was 10 when they got married, because they got married in 81.
Okay.
So I guess I was early 10 or late 9 when they met.
Awesome.
But he was a great guy. So.
Did he set kind of the example for you of how to be a man? And
he did. He really did. He kind of really showed me a lot of that. He always worked hard, took care of things. And, there's other qualities there that weren't so good and probably showed me what I didn't want to do.
Yeah. What did he do for a living?
He worked for the Burlington Northern Railroad, and he started when they were the Frisco Railroad, so he'd been there 30-something years. and he was a ramp manager. You know where they take the tractor trailers and load them onto the train cars?
Yeah.
Yeah, he worked at the intermodal hub down there in St. Louis.
Dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that was when you were 10, so he played, he's at the, really formative years of your life. Yeah, he really
came into the part where I needed that guiding hand and probably kept me from doing a lot of stuff that, probably got me in a lot more trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you ever a troublesome kid?
No, not really. I was probably getting closer to that path.
Before you stepped in?
Yeah, because, I knew some of the kids what they were doing, and I was starting to hang out with them. And so, yeah, the funny story is, when I lived in the trailer park, my dad's best friend, whose name is Charlie, and I always knew them, from just being around, but his son, Brett, was my best friend growing up. So we grew up in the same trailer park pretty much, and, that was one of my best friends growing up, and we still, know each other today, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. It's awesome. Did you play any sports?
Baseball. Baseball was always my thing. I started when we were in Macomb and T-ball, and I played all the way through college.
Really?
Yeah.
Man. Was anybody in your family members involved in law enforcement at all?
No, none. I got my aunt on my grandmother's side, her sister, was literally, I didn't know at the time. We always grew up thinking she worked for NASA because that's the story she told us. She was a secretary for NASA. After she retired, 10 years retired, she admitted that she was CIA.
No way.
But we had no idea growing up. None.
She admitted she was CIA. Wow. And she kept it from the entire family?
She kept it from everybody. Yeah, so I don't know what she actually did because she never would tell us that, but her cover story apparently was she was a secretary at NASA, so.
Wow.
And that's what we all thought she did until 10 years after her retirement.
No way. So that was a connection to law enforcement you didn't realize you had.
Yeah, exactly.
I grew up super poor too, and I still remember the St. Louis County cop that was driving up and down the street. He would stop and give us baseball cards or pop rocks or whatever else. Did you have any interactions with law enforcement when you were young?
Here's my interaction with law enforcement when I was young. I was 6 years old. I got a brand new, and this is going to show my age. Okay, it was an AMF, who owned Harley Davidson time, made bicycles. They made motocross bikes. And I got a brand new one, and it was beautiful. It was chrome, chrome wheels, blue tires, blue pads on the handlebars, blue seat. I mean, it was just awesome. AMF Hawk 2, I'll never forget it. Well, I had the thing maybe 2 weeks, and I left it outside and not put it in the shed and lock it up. So you know what happened to that bike?
Yeah, somebody stole it.
It got stolen. The cop who came by and made a report, I told him all about it, and, figured that's it. It's gone forever. 1 week later, he came back to my house with my bike.
No way.
He was on patrol a week later, remembered the blue tires. He said, blue tires. I've never seen a bike with blue tires. Stuck in my mind. I see a kid go by with a bike with blue tires and silver, and he's like, stopped him, and it was a juvenile who stole it.
No way.
And then from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to be a cop.
How old were you then?
I was 6 years old.
6 years old.
Yeah.
Dude, I always wonder about that sometimes from now being a cop when I'm an adult and some of the interactions that we have with kids.
Right.
And sometimes you'll be on the worst calls ever and you'll have such genuine interaction with kids.
It's amazing.
And I've always wondered what seed may be planted in a kid's head.
Right.
Because it was moments like you just said, some cop remembering your story and making sure you got your bike back, which is something so small in the cops world.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh yeah.
But in your world, it's everything. And the cop driving down the road and giving me a baseball card and some pop rocks, those moments stuck with me.
Oh, absolutely.
For forever.
It's those little things.
Yeah, they were a huge part of my life and formed this opinion of police officers. That's a lot of people talk bad about community policing.
Right.
You hear a lot of people talk bad about community policing. A lot of cops are I don't want to be burdened with it. We got too much other stuff to do. But, look at how you got interested in law enforcement.
Exactly. And I think, a lot of us did community policing before it was ever a coin phrase.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, always were out talking to kids and that, trying to check on them.
Yeah, stop and play baseball.
Exactly.
Or stop and throw a football with the kid or whatever else.
Right. That's all it takes.
So you played baseball through college. Did you get a scholarship?
I did. I had a partial scholarship to Lynn State Technical College.
Where's that at?
Now, it's down by Jeff City. It's in Lynn, Missouri. So it's a town you never heard of. And it's a little technical college.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I was going to school for avionics.
Really?
Yeah. That's where I thought I was going to head.
Dang. Let's step back to high school real quick.
Sure.
Where did you go to high school?
Pacific High School.
That's such a St. Louis thing to say. Like, where'd you go to high school? But
Yeah.
Where? You said
Pacific.
Pacific,
Yeah. Yep.
Missouri.
Yeah, Pacific, Missouri.
So how'd you get over to the Missouri side?
In 1983, we moved here. Or, yeah, it was 83. No, it was 82 because the flood happened.
Okay.
So it was right before the big flood of 82 happened.
Yeah.
We had moved out here because my stepdad and my mom, they wanted a piece of property in the country, away from it all. So they bought a house on like an acre and a half in Catawissa, Missouri.
Catawissa. Is there a lake there?
There is no, well, there's a recreation area, like a conservation. They call it the gravel pits because we used to mine out the gravel.
Yeah.
But that's about all you call a lake. It's right off the Merrimack River.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's
So
cool.
Catawissa population at that time was like 40.
40?
40. Yeah. We had a
my
convenience
goodness.
store, a post office, MFA, and 2 bars.
How old were you then when you guys moved?
Let's see, I would have been 11, 12.
So what
So
was
it was
that?
shortly after they got married, we moved out here.
What was that like, moving from?
It was weird because I left all my friends behind in Illinois. I used to left my school behind. It was my first time in a public school because my mom had always got me to a parochial school.
Really?
Yeah, I went to a Lutheran school up to that grade,
way.
6th grade. And I started out here, and public school was different for me. It really was. The classes were different, bigger, just.
Did you
totally
do
different
better
dynamic.
or in private school or better?
I did much better in private school than I
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Was faith always like a portion of your guys' life? Did you guys grow up with faith?
Not
or?
really. Not 100. No, we were the go to church on the holidays,
Okay. Yeah.
I always went, up to 5th grade where I went to parochial school. We had, church every day at school, pretty much. Wednesdays you'd have an hour of mass, and then again on Friday have an hour of mass. And
Okay, so that was the most influence was going through, like the most godly influence in your life was going to that Lutheran
yeah,
school.
absolutely was, yeah.
Okay.
Because once we moved out here, we kind of stopped going to that church and that,
Okay.
My mom kind of picked it up later in life as have I, but,
It was like shell shock moving from.
Oh, it was so weird. We grew up in a town that had everything.
How many
out
people
here.
did you say?
40.
40 people?
Yeah, 40. We had one subdivision. I mean, it's a tiny little place. Still is today. It's still only like 80 people right now.
No way.
Yeah, it's unincorporated Franklin County.
So did they have like an elementary school there, or did you have to like ride a bus for like 45
Well, there
minutes?
was a bus, and it took you to Nike Elementary School, which was on the site of the former Nike missile base. And when I went to school there, we actually were in the troop barrack buildings that
No
had converted
way.
to a school.
No way.
The silos were still out back and everything for the missiles. It was pretty different experience.
How'd you play baseball and stuff there? There's only 40 people in the whole town.
Well, we lived by Pacific. Pacific was the closest town, and they had, of course, they were a little bit bigger. They were a town of like 4,500. We moved out there, and they
Okay.
had leagues and that.
Okay. So you just make a little bit of a travel.
Yeah,
to,
it was always a little bit of a travel to do anything. You want to go to Walmart, it's a 20-minute each-way trip,
Oof, it's rough.
And that was when Pacific had a Walmart.
Does it not anymore?
It does not. We're the only town in the world that ever lost a Walmart. They closed our Walmart and built a super center in Eureka, which is another 15 minutes up the road.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you live in that area still?
No, I live right
okay.
here in O'Fallon now.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I know where you live.
Yep.
I think I've been to your house a couple times, actually. All right. So what was high school like for you?
High school, let's see. Did I like it? No. Was I intelligent enough to get it done? Yes. I
feel
could
like
have tried a
that's
lot harder,
That's a cop
You're
story,
right. I
dude.
should have tried a lot harder because I had the intelligence to do it.
Yeah.
Didn't have the drive to do homework, all that stuff that bothers you after class.
Yeah.
And so, my grades were
Middle of
medium
the
to
road.
high.
Yeah.
Did really well my senior year because I took 3 hours of welding and 3 hours of auto mechanics, so, that helped out.
So it seems like you were always kind of interested in doing stuff with your hands.
Yes, I've always been very mechanically inclined. I think that came from my grandfather.
Yeah.
When we were like 5 years old, he had us out there on the job site cleaning up stuff and make money and, always taught us how to build things. And he was an incredibly crafted guy and probably one of the strongest influences in my life just because how he was, how he treated people. It was really good to watch him work because he was a great
Really?
businessman and extremely talented.
Really? Like, are you saying like the way he treated people, like was he always like a really genuine person?
He really was. He was very genuine. He was the old handshake kind of deal kind of guy. Your honor meant everything to you.
Yeah.
If he gave you his word, something was going to be done, it was going to be done.
That's awesome.
You know, and that's
what's missing from society.
There's a lot of that missing nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that era has like died with
Right.
that generation. You know,
Yeah.
everything now is like, how can I get something over on somebody? And everybody's in a race to the finish line. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So avionics, what got you interested in that?
I think at the time I was just thinking, you know, that's a job that should pay a lot of money.
Yeah, it's got a big name.
Right. It's got a big name. It's got to be fancy, right? That's kind of what drew me to that. Nothing
Yeah.
else. I mean, I wish it was more genuine, but that's it.
Yeah. So you go through high school. I'm guessing you did pretty well at baseball.
Yeah. I was a pretty decent baseball player. We did traveling teams. My best friend growing up out there, he played shortstop our entire time. I played third base. Oh. And literally when we went to college, we both got partial scholarship out there, so that was great. Did
you spend all 4 years there?
No. I only attended 1 year.
Really?
Yep.
What happened?
It was a 2-year school, and it was economics. I couldn't afford to go back for the second year.
Okay.
I just could not afford it, and I was going to try to put it off. And you know how that goes. I'm going to put this off and come back and do it in a minute, and you know that never happened.
Never did.
Right.
So did you go back to Pacific area?
Yeah, I went right back to Pacific. I started working at the Ramada Inn at Six Flags. I got a maintenance job there. I was there for a couple of years. And you're just doing all kinds of hotel, motel maintenance, everything from air conditioning work to, you know, carpet laying to painting, you name it, we did it.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. It taught me a lot. I worked with some older guys there who were really knowledgeable, and I learned even more than I already knew, which was, you know, I felt was pretty decent, but
yeah,
they were nice guys.
Yeah, the trades, you see a lot of guys transfer over to law enforcement from the trades. Like I had Joe Judge on here, and he was like a carpenter and switched over.
I did that for a hot minute right out of high school, yep.
Okay. So how long were you at Ramada?
I was only there about a year and a half.
What drew you away from there?
A friend of my mom's needed help at his business, so I went to work for him.
What did he do?
We were, it was called R.H. Brunn's Vault and Monument, still there in Pacific. Company's been there since 1916. They do burial vaults, tombstones, and grave digging.
So what'd you do? The grave digging?
Grave digging, tombstones, and burial vaults. Yeah,
really?
We did it all. Yeah,
did they have like a CAD machine or something that engraved them?
No, actually you did it by hand with sandblasting. He would literally lay these rubber templates on the stone, cut them all out by hand, each letter, and then we'd take it in the sandblast booth and just work it, you know, sandblasting into granite.
No way.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Dang, so he put like I'm guessing the template started off as like a big rubber piece of...
You take a big piece of like 3M rubber they make just for this, you lay it out there,
and then
you take like a rubbing, you know, like you do transfer paper.
Yeah.
And you rub it, and you'd stamp it on there with a little hammer, and then he'd go through and hand cut each letter out, and yeah, man. He was very talented.
Yeah, that seems like there's probably a much easier way to do it now.
There definitely is. There's machines that cut them out for you, and when you lay the template on, that's been there for a long time.
Did you learn how to do that as well?
Not really. I didn't really get into like the cutting of that because that was kind of his thing.
Yeah.
And but I did a lot of the sandblasting. I did grave digging. I worked on all our equipment all the time.
No way.
Our equipment was, let's say, aged.
Yeah. When did you become interested in law enforcement as a career?
I'd always been interested in doing it.
Yeah.
But it was just, how do you stop working? Because I moved out right after I came back from my first year of college. I moved out less than a month later.
Really?
To my parents' house and was gone.
Was it like you just wanted to be out, or were they like, hey, you need to get out?
It was one of those deals, hey, I think it's time you pay rent. And I'm like, yeah, if I got to abide by rules, I kind of want to pay somebody else that rent. So yeah. I was gone.
That's awesome. So what drew you into, when did you start pursuing law enforcement?
I started looking at the academy probably when I was about 22, 23. But it took me, I was trying to save up the money to go and figure out how to work and get all that in. But I really got, serious thinking about it, and I started doing the testing and that and looking around. And, nobody back then when I was doing it was really putting you through the academy, so it was kind of on your own to pay for it.
Yeah.
So the real game in town was, St. Charles County Police Academy, which is now Eastern Missouri Police Academy.
Yeah.
And one day my boss walked in, handed me an envelope of money and said, "Here, go pay for your academy and go."
Was it the same guy?
Yeah, same guy I worked for. I worked for him for 7 years.
7 years?
Yeah.
Oh, man, so he knew that you wanted to be a cop.
Oh, yeah. He
What
knew
a
the whole
blessing.
time. Yeah, so it really was. Like I said, he's an amazing guy. Wouldn't be where I am now without him.
Yeah.
So.
It was $7,000 and he gave it to you?
I think it was like $4,000 he gave me. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Thank that guy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's like small businesses, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The people are just so, like, there's real relationship there.
That's true. It was literally 3 guys who worked there. Me and him, who did most of it, and we had one guy who poured concrete for the burial vaults.
No way.
And that was it.
Okay, so you went to Eastern Missouri?
I did go to Eastern Missouri.
What'd you think about it?
It was all right. I mean, was it like, teach you how to be a cop? Not really.
Where was it at then? Was it at the community
we were
college?
the first class at the community college, and we were the first night class to be there.
Where was it at before that?
Before that, it was in downtown St. Charles. You know where the jail is?
Yeah.
It was in that building. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they ran it out of there.
Yep, they sure did. Yeah, because that's where I did all my application process was down there and all that, and then they'd moved right before I started.
So, was that your first? It's like a paramilitary experience, I guess. What'd you think about that? Like,
I found that to be very odd. I've never understood what marching and spinning and all that stuff had to do with police work.
There's some truth to that.
I didn't really understand the thing because I didn't come from the military and I didn't have any of that experience. So for me, it was very odd. I'm like, it's kind of weird, but kind of neat at the same time.
What year was this?
That was we were class 397, so we started into 96.
Okay.
I think that's right. No. Yeah, I think so.
I think you're probably right. And you went to the night class?
Yes.
Was it a year long?
It was a year long.
Were you working at your?
I worked full time that entire time, doing the grave digging job. And
really? Yeah. How'd you manage that?
It was hard. It was hard because we worked a lot of hours. We usually worked 50, 60 hours, But like I said, I had a great boss who let me know when I had to go and let me go.
Really?
Yeah.
The instructors there, were they very strict and regimented?
Some tried to be that way. Some were older law enforcement guys who were there for the paycheck, I think, more than anything else at that time. There was a lot of, we only had 4 instructors, mainly because they just kept rotating to different things for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a couple of good ones, but for the most part, there were a couple older guys who just were doing it for the funds.
How many guys were in your class?
We started off with 32, I believe.
32. That's a huge
And we graduated,
class.
I think, 16. Yeah, we lost a lot of people throughout the year.
Really? What? Wow.
Getting kicked out of the class. Some people were late. One guy was being sponsored by a department and wrecked the car and got let go. Yeah. We just had you run the gamut, and there was a lot of people who couldn't make the time requirements and the financial requirements. So, there was all kinds of different things. We had one guy, he was told, the first day, you need to get a haircut. Okay. Comes in, next day, no haircut. You need to get a haircut. It goes all the way to, the next Monday. So we're, in the second week now. The academy coordinator comes in, he goes, I thought I told you to get a haircut. He goes, oh, you were serious? He goes, yeah, I'm serious. Goodbye.
No way. 30, you said 32? That's a huge class.
It was huge.
Now they can't get a class of 10.
Right.
Or 12.
Yeah. So that's how much competition. I'll tell you, after I graduated the academy, my first place I went and applied to, because, I started in Pacific, Missouri.
Yeah.
My biggest thing I always said going to the academy, I will never, ever work in Pacific, Missouri. I went to high school here. I know everybody. It's a small town. Not going to do that. So I go to Ellisville. I think 600 people showed up for the testing.
600?
We had a high school cafeteria full of people doing the test. It was insane. They had one position open.
Man, I just had a guy that was in the academy call me yesterday while I was cutting the grass.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I'm not going to get a job when I graduate. He's like, I'm not going to be able to graduate in uniform. He's like, everybody else in the class is graduating in uniform. And if I could have punched him through the phone, I would have. You know, it's like, dude, none of us had jobs. Like,
Right.
I became a cop in 2000, and I went through the academy in 2011, graduated and became a cop in 2012. And nobody, I think 2 guys in our entire class had jobs when we graduated. It was so competitive.
Ours was very little. Joe Litzinger, who we work with, was actually one of the guys in my class.
Really?
He turned 21 in the academy.
Me too. I did too.
He got hired at Ladue. Yeah.
Really?
But when I went to Ellisville and applied, you know, we had all these people show up, and I'm like, well, I'll never hear from this again. I made it to the last 2.
No way.
Yeah, and they took a guy who had experience.
Really?
Yep. But it was impossible to find a job. I tested at Kirkwood, which I really had no interest in being at, but they were like the only one hiring. I didn't ever hear back from them after the test, so I guess they had somebody else in mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting at home, and I'll show you my age. I opened the Post-Dispatch, you know, and I'm reading the paper, and it says job ad, Civic, Missouri. I'm like, oh, well, okay, all right. How much does it pay? Oh my God, I'm gonna take a pay cut.
No, did you really?
I went to so I'll take it to it. Yeah, I went from making like $27,000 a year to $23,500. That's what we started at in Civic, was $23,500. So literally the story, this is a great story because it's my first police job. So I go up there and I fill the application out, and I go turn it in at the police department. The next day, on my front door, it's the chief of police. All right. He's like, hey, I want to talk to you about this application you've turned in. All right. And I'm like, sure. He's like, can you come up tomorrow and talk to me? Absolutely, sir. Whatever you need, sir. You know, I'll be there. I go in the next day, not thinking anything of anything, you know. I'm just like, oh, I guess he wants to talk and see who I am, you know. We sat in his office. We talked for like 2.5 hours about everybody we knew in common and, you know, things going on in town and, we're, you know, current events, you name it, we talked about it. And we're just sitting there BSing like we are now. And I said, okay, so what's the next process getting this job? You know, I said, what's the next part of the thing? He's like, oh, you got the job. I'll get your ID and gum before you leave. I'm like,
no background?
No background.
No polygraph?
No polygraph. No nothing.
No way.
I literally walked in, talked to him for 2 hours, walked out with as a policeman. And I'm like, I'm shell-shocked. I'm like, what happened? I mean, how did this just happen? I don't even know.
That's insane. Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah. Times were different.
Yeah, for sure. Did you go through like a field training process? Or
I
how'd that?
I went through a 3-month field training, you know, and trained with a guy who had quite a bit of experience out there. Really good guy. Taught me a lot. He was the old hard school retired Army, became a cop afterwards, real hard nosed, you know.
Yeah.
But I did learn a lot. So
what was do you remember your first hot call? Like the first call that you went to, like, oh man, I guess I'm the police now.
God, I don't know. There were so many. No, I really don't. I don't know if I just blocked that out because I'll tell you what, when my first traffic stop, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Really?
I was so nervous. I couldn't talk.
No way.
I was like, the reason I'm like, can't get it out. I'm like, just talk to the person. I'm like, no, I can't do it. I'm like really nervous. I'm like, I've never been in charge before. What's this?
How old are you then?
I was 27.
27.
Yeah, I was 27. I started late.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, were you nervous that like something bad was going to happen, or you just nervous because you were in a position of authority?
I was just nervous because the position of power like threw me off, and I'm telling these people what to do now. I'm like, I'm just a poor boy from the woods, you know. I don't know nothing.
Yeah, dude.
I'll never forget because I stopped a gold Mercedes, my first car stop ever.
Really?
Yes, it was a female driver, and I stopped her for like 15 over, and I couldn't talk.
No way. What was specific like? What was it like working there?
It was an interesting dynamic because we had every class of people you could imagine in a very small area. So we had very, well-to-do neighborhoods. We had very, very poor areas. And, so we ran the gambit from all over the thing. We did everything you could think of. And we were also very unique that a third of our city was in St. Louis County and a third of our 2/3 was in Franklin County. And we had a little spot in Jefferson County.
So let me ask you this. So if you stop a car, you get felony dope or whatever.
Right.
Are you applying for just whatever county that
Whatever
you're in at
county
the
you
time?
stopped them in. Yep. If you get a DVI, whatever county you stop them in.
Really?
Yeah. So that was a really unique dynamic that people
weird.
don't think about dealing with. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. It's very
I didn't even know
weird.
that happened.
I didn't either until I started that.
Really?
But yeah, it was weird because one day you'd be in Franklin County Courthouse, and next time you'd have to go to St. Louis County.
Yeah. This is like late 90s, early 2000s or something? like
That was 98 I started there. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm guessing late 90s, early 2000s, meth was out of control in rural
It really
America.
was. That was back when the anhydrous method was huge.
Yeah.
I had the biggest dope bust at that time in Pacific history.
Tell me about it.
I literally, I was only on probably, I guess I've been on almost a year. And yeah, because I was starting to think who else was with me there. And so this car goes by, and it's this little crappy car, primered up, and here's my great reason for stopping.
Primered up in gravel dust, man. That's
yes.
That's dope.
Exactly. And the reason I'm going to stop it, it has no driver's side mirror. The mirror is just, it's got the holder, but there's no mirror in it. I'm like, I'm going to stop him for that real quick. So I stop it, and immediately overwhelming fumes coming from this car.
Really?
And the guy, who's the driver, he jumps out of the car, and he's like, yeah, I know my license is not good, and I know the car's not registered, I don't have insurance, man. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's fine. That's fine. Look, just tell me your name and all that. And I go over to the passenger side where the other guy's in the car, and it's somebody I went to high school with, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. And I look down, and there's these two huge, big pickle jars, the big, 2-gallon ones, and they're both bubbling because they're making the meth right there in the car.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, all right. I didn't know what hardly to do. We ended up calling the drug unit for out there. One of their guys come out and handled it, like they did in the 90s. He just came out there, grabbed it out of the car, put it in his car, and left.
Yeah.
But that was 3,500 grams of methamphetamine.
No way. That's
Yes,
a lot.
It was.
Dang. 3,500 grams.
Yep.
Were you kind of a go-getter young cop?
I was. I think I was anyway. I like to think I was.
Yeah.
I liked to write tickets back then a lot, and I said we were always busy, and being the small town was nice because you knew who was into what.
Yeah.
And, if you had a certain crime, it wasn't that difficult, to kind of put some pieces together and figure it out.
Yeah. Like 1 of 4,000 people did this.
Right.
And 3,990
Exactly.
are normal people just trying to live their lives.
And I was only there a year before they made me an FTO. I had 1 year of experience, and they made me an FTO in Pacific.
No way.
Yeah.
Was the turnover relatively high
It
there?
was pretty high, yeah. We were like a 13-man department, and...
Like a stepping stone department?
Exactly. It was a place to come in and get experience.
Yeah. Sounds about
Yeah.
right. A lot of those
Yeah.
rural departments, Wright City was like that.
Yep.
I actually applied there when I got out of the academy, and they looked at me, and they said, you're too qualified. I was like, what? They're like,
We know you're not staying, so
that's
we're not
exactly
gonna
what they
hire
said.
you. Yep.
They're like, you're going to leave. You're going to come here. You're going to be here for 2 years. You're going to leave.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, man. Well, I'm just looking for a job of any kind at this point.
I would
So-
slip my toe in the door a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
it seemed like, especially when I first started, if you didn't have experience, it was hard to get to a bigger city or someplace
Mm-hmm.
that paid better.
Yeah. I can't believe you were making $23,000 a year.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was making $23,500 a year, and me and another guy who had started, who's also a very good guy, we got a raise our first year, and we got like a $6,000 raise, and we were making $29,500.
Wow.
And I don't know, did you ever work with Jim Klinger?
Yeah, Jimmy?
Yeah. So Jimmy was in Pacific when I started there, okay?
Oh, really?
I remember how upset he was because we got this raise. I'm making $29,500, right? He's been there 10 years in Pacific. He's a corporal, and he was making like $29,700.
He's a good dude,
he's
man.
Like, I'm
I like
happy
him.
for you, but I'm really pissed off right now.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I like Jimmy. I think he went back there.
He did. He's still back in Pacific. I saw him
really?
on the news the other day.
No way.
Yeah.
What's he doing there now? Do you know?
Still patrolman. Yep.
Really?
Yep. I think he's a sergeant there now.
Awesome. Good for him, dude. He's a good guy.
Great guy.
Yeah.
Learned
super
a
good
lot
guy.
from him young in my career, let me tell you.
Yeah. So how long were you at Pacific?
2.5 years.
Okay.
Yep. And I really liked it there, but there was 2 incidents that made me leave, and, if you want to talk about them, I will a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
for sure. Go ahead.
One was we had a robbery of our local IGA grocery store, and it was, like the lady was leaving for the cash. Guy comes out of nowhere, pulls a shotgun out, points it at her, says, drop the bag and run. So, not a big deal, and very little to go on. Very, very little. I mean, my report was like 4 paragraphs because that's how little there was to go on.
Yeah.
And so I worked pretty diligently, working with my people I knew and over and that, and I come to find out who it was. And come to find out it was someone who worked there as a reserve, their kid. I presented what I had to the bosses there, and it was shut down.
Really?
And that really bothered me. I was like, man, come on.
Yeah, that's not like
this is an armed robbery. This is not something small,
It's not a speeding ticket.
Right. And the guy had been there a long, long time as a reserve only. But, that was weird. And then we had another incident where the chief ordered me to do one thing, went to do that thing. The mayor said, don't do that thing. And it was a little back and forth, and I didn't feel they stood behind me. So I started looking immediately.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's the problem with
it's it's a small town.
rural departments.
Yeah.
It's like
and they were unique because they did not at that time have an appointed police chief. They had an elected police chief. So every 4 years they ran and won the election. Yes, they're technically a city marshal.
Really?
Yeah.
So that added a whole nother level.
It added a whole nother politics and
and
dynamics. Yeah. So.
Was there like a term limit? Could you only be the chief for so long?
The gentleman who was there at that time, Chief Ron Reed, he'd been there a long time.
Okay.
Long time. I in fact, ever since I moved there, I think he was chief. So it'd been a long time. And when he retired finally, he ran and won the municipal judge.
So how many guys were working at a time on if you were working, what shift were you assigned to?
Well, we rotated. We did the rotate every month.
Oh.
It was terrible. We would be on.
So bad for your mental health.
Yes, we had 8 to 4. We had 11 to 7. We had a 7 to 3 car, which was most of the time the captain at that time. And then we'd have a midnight car. Now, a lot of nights, I'd say 4 nights a week, you were the midnight car. One person. Lone Ranger.
My goodness.
All by yourself. And, if we were lucky, we'd have 2 of us on, and that'd be like, oh, okay.
Let's
we
go get after
have
it.
zones. We could, split the town in half.
So you went to domestics and all that other stuff by yourself?
By yourself, yep.
Man, that is an officer safety nightmare.
Yeah, it really was. My first trainee I ever had, there, I was training this girl, and we go to a call of a simple domestic. You just show up at this trailer park, and we get there, and this house is, it's bad. This lady's sitting on the couch, doesn't get up, just yells through the door, come on in. She's like, my son's crazy. And come to contact the guy, and he's deaf. Okay, so we're writing notes back and forth, and I'm struggling here, because here I'm only a little over a year myself, I'm not like a master chief cop here. I'm like, okay, writing notes, and finally I write him a note, all right, Mom says you have to leave. He immediately pushes me, runs past me, runs in, grabs a bottle of pills, which I had no idea what they were, some prescription bottle, cranks it open, goes to throw him down his throat. I get up there just in time to smack him out of his hand. So pills fly, and the fight was on.
Really?
I didn't realize how high on methamphetamine this guy was, but he was up there.
Really?
We turned that place into wrestling at the chase. I mean, we were talking off the top rope, tables broken, lamps thrown around. We wrestled this dude all the way around, and I'm on the radio saying, hey, see if you can get County here or somebody, And we're wrestling, and it felt like an eternity. It was like 11 minutes in reality.
Really? That's a long fight.
That was a really long time. And we just got him into cuffs. I had one cuff on him for, I bet you, half that fight, trying to hang on to that cuff and him, and trying to get the other one on. And my trainee was doing all she could, but, she was brand new, and she was like 110 pounds. And
kudos to her for fighting, though.
Yeah, exactly, right. I was like 160 pounds, so, I was not a big boy at that time.
Yeah.
And we literally fought for 11 minutes, and the chief got there from his house.
No way.
I kid you not.
So
that was my first backup.
Were you, did you use like a county dispatch or something?
No, we had our own dispatch.
Really?
We had our own dispatch center, yep. Hey, dispatchers, we had, very weird for a small department.
Yeah.
How self-contained we were. We housed our own prisoners. We would house you long term.
No way.
We do 30 days. We do weekends in jail. We did all that.
No way. In a town of 5,000 with 13 people total that work
Exactly. And it's this little bitty building, But we had they had a good setup on the jail. It had like a big common room. It had a shower in it, a picnic table, a collect call only phone, and then it had 2 cells, it halls for 4 people. Then we had another cell that held, like problem children, and then a female cell. And that was it. We had 3 cells.
Dude, I went out to Crystal City when I first started. I started as a jailer, and like they sent
So
me.
you started down in Jeffco. I didn't know that.
No, I started in O'Fallon, but I was a jailer at O'Fallon. They sent me down to Crystal City.
Oh, okay.
Which for me that was like sending me to a different universe.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd never been.
If
you told me find Jeffco on a map, I wouldn't have been able to.
You grew up out here, didn't you?
I grew up in like North St. Louis and then
right.
St. Charles County, but.
So yeah, that's complete culture shock.
Oh yeah, man.
I mean, I go there and I'm like down back home, I'm like my stomping grounds.
I pulled up like to the back alley of this police department to pick this guy up. There's no Sally Port, and I walk in and the guy's laying on the gurney thing, like on the not on a gurney, but on like they had him handcuffed to like a concrete. I guess it was a chair, pretty much bench,
yeah.
And he's like saying he's gonna have a heart attack, and I'm like, hey, I'm here to pick up, and that was the guy I was getting ready to pick up.
Of course it was.
And so he's like, here he is. I'm like, no, you are not giving me this fool. No. You better figure something out.
Do you have a fit for confinement? If not, I'm leaving.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was like, dude, listen, they are going. If I bring this guy back to O'Fallon, they're going to lose their minds. Like, I'm not taking this dude.
Right.
You got to get medics here or something. Like, you got to figure something out with them. And we ended up releasing him. It was like a, nonsense mutiny bond or something, but he legit was having a heart attack. Paramedics came up, transported him.
Really?
Yeah.
The one time it was real.
Yeah, and they're going to put him in the back of my car. It's like, he's right there. I'm like, no, dude, you're nuts. I am not taking that guy.
Sounds like a city pro thing.
Yeah. How'd you end up moving over to O'Fallon?
When I decided I'd leave Pacific, I started throwing applications in everywhere. And at that time, I was living in Creve Coeur in an apartment. And I just started throwing applications, throw the blanket out,
Yeah.
And I had applications in at O'Fallon, St. Charles City, and St. Peter's. And I did an interview for St. Peter's first. I did terrible. I woke up late. I mean, you think everything go wrong for an interview, and I was there. My eyes are bloodshot. I'd worked the night before.
Oh, no.
I fell asleep, woke up like 10 minutes for the interview, had to run to it. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh, no.
So literally, I take that back. I had already moved to St. Peter's at that time, living in an apartment. And, because I was commuting Pacific every day.
Ooh.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Been a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so that's why I put in those 3 departments right there. And I had a really good interview, I thought, at St. Charles City. I had a good interview at O'Fallon. I got the call one day, and it says, hey, we can set you up for the chief's interview at City. Okay, great. The next day, O'Fallon calls and offers me the job.
Oh, no.
So, bird in the hand, 2 in the bush. Here I am going to O'Fallon.
Yeah.
Have I ever been to O'Fallon? Yeah, one time when I was like 10.
Really?
We went out and picked up some windows with my grandpa. What do you know about O'Fallon? They said, I know where 70 is, and I can find the police station.
Yeah.
That's
which police station was it then?
That was when we were at City Hall. They had just moved to City Hall.
Because before that, it was at like that. It was a little brick building right across the street.
Just right down the road from the City Hall. But they were pretty new at City Hall when I started.
Really?
Yep.
At least you moved into that, not into that little.
Exactly.
I've heard horror stories about that other building.
Yeah, I heard that was pretty bad.
So there wasn't anything specific that drew you there. You just it was the area that you worked.
No.
What was O'Fallon like then?
We were 49,000 people when I started, and we'd have 4 cops on it a lot of times. If we were really heavy that day, we'd have 5, 6. We had 6 zones, which 7 and 8 was like everything from K&N south, which anything below K&N was a 2-lane road.
Really?
Yeah, Highway K turned into 2 lanes once you passed in. And the only thing down there literally was the Reserve Research Park, which used to be Mallard something apartments.
Yeah.
That was the only thing we had down there. till you got to 40, and then there was that gas station that used to be there. I don't know if you
Was there
remember
like a strip club somewhere down there?
Yeah, there's a strip club behind the gas station. Though,
It's
but
so
the gas station
crazy.
and that strip club, they were county venue.
Oh, really?
So the only thing we had to go past, all that and go to Pin Oak. We just annexed Pin Oak when I
Pin
started.
Oak was I didn't know.
County. Oh, they were still competing for Pin Oak at the time. If you called county would respond because they were mad about the annexation and fighting it in court.
No way.
And if they called us, we'd respond. So you could literally pull in the same street and have a county car at one house and us at the other.
Really?
It was crazy.
They were fighting for it?
They were fighting over, yeah. You think
Really?
that ever happened?
Yeah.
Right?
That's insane. 49,000 people. I always hear, it's just so bizarre to me that past Canaan was nothing.
Yeah, it really was. There used to be, I remember on midnights, my first FTO, we used to see coyote packs running across the road.
No way.
It's just because there was nothing down there.
Was it a slowdown for you from Pacific to
It was
O'Fallon?
quite the slowdown, actually. I was like, the call load was so much less because I guess we had less people and rowdier clientele out there.
Yeah.
And, yeah, because just a whole different demographic of, people. Pacific was a lot poorer area, and unfortunately, that does tend to draw a lot of calls.
Yeah. When you moved to O'Fallon, did you have any aspirations of doing anything in particular? Like, was there like, hey, I'm going to a bigger department, I want to try and do this or that, or?
I think I always dreamed of being promoted, and that was kind of probably my biggest goal at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just try and get promoted.
Yep. And then I started in O'Fallon, and I was there a year, and they made me an FTO in O'Fallon after a year there. So, again, here I am, 3 years of police work, second time FTOing. I'm like, I barely knew the streets myself then.
Yeah.
And that was kind of odd.
It's so crazy to think how much you have seen that area grow.
It really is.
Because it's so populated now.
Yeah, it is. So many subdivisions that weren't there.
Yeah.
And so much of the county. I mean, literally, we used to get this map book. It was like, literally, when you put it in the plastic binder sheets, it was like 8 inches thick. And all of that was subdivisions. And if you got a call, you had to look it up. Okay, I don't know where that's at. Find the subdivision, then have to follow the little streets through it. Okay, here's where I'm going. And that's what we used to do for everything.
Did you guys have, back then, did you guys have your own dispatchers, or was it?
Yeah, we did. We had our own dispatch. It was really strange when I first started in O'Fallon. They had cameras in all the cars. I'm like, oh, that's cool, Because in Pacific, we had one camera for one car, and that was their traffic car.
Yeah.
But we got out there, and then I found out none of the cameras in any of the cars in O'Fallon worked. They were all broken.
Really?
Yeah, so we never really had a camera. They just were keeping the systems in, I guess, to look appear official. But they were the old VCR setups in the trunk, and they were all broken.
VCR setups
They
in
were
the
VCR
trunk.
setups. I kid you not.
No way. So you'd have to go put a thing into the...
Yeah, you'd have to put a cassette into you had to open the lockbox in the trunk, put a cassette in, in the little VCR unit, and that was your camera.
No way. Holy cow.
All right, so I'm dating myself, but
Yeah,
that's what we had when I started there.
What year is that? Like
That was 2000.
2000.
Yep.
So right around 2000 is when O'Fallon really started to grow.
Right. I was part of the big explosion of hiring they were doing.
Really?
I mean, if you look at, like, Steve Lenz, who was before me, 174, he actually started like 6-7 months before I did.
Really?
At 209. Yeah, that's how fast they were hiring at that time.
Okay. I'm guessing the city was exploding and they were just trying to keep up with it?
They were just trying to keep up with it, but adding policemen left and right.
Okay. Did you enjoy coming out to O'Fallon?
I did. I liked it to a certain extent because of a different pace.
Yeah.
It was a lot bigger, a big change for you being in the bigger area. But it was a different time then. I kind of treated it like I did Pacific. My first month, I went out and wrote like 100 tickets. I got called to the chief's office and told, you can calm that down.
Really?
Yeah, I really did. True story happened.
Stop writing all of our...
You don't need to write all the residence tickets. Okay, okay, all right. So, that's what I did. I'm like, well, that's weird.
Yeah, that is insane. So it was a little bit of shell shock moving from Pacific to O'Fallon.
Absolutely.
How quickly did the city grow?
Pretty fast, in all honesty. I'd say in the first 10 years I was there, that's when we started approaching the 90,000 mark.
No way.
Yeah, it was a rapid expansion.
Yeah, it had to be because I started in 2012.
Yeah.
And it was booming.
Yeah. You've probably started right, it was like 92, 93.
Yeah.
Now we're pushing, 98 or something?
Yeah.
But we're running out of spots.
Yeah, there has to be more than 98. There's no way. That city
It seems low.
It seems like they've been saying there's 98,000 citizens there for the last 5 years.
At least, yeah.
I've watched subdivisions with 10,000 people go up one after another after
that
another
was the
after
thing
another.
I remember most is we were patrolling construction sites because everything in the city was under construction. Everything,
Yeah.
There was subdivisions going up left and right, you name it.
Do you remember your first hot call at O'Fallon? Or the first major incident you had at O'Fallon?
Not really. I remember a call from Pacific, and this one, the first one, I'll tell you the first call that affected me. Because if it don't affect me, I kind of don't really care.
Yeah.
But in Pacific, shortly before I left, we got a call of a missing 4-year-old. Or no, yeah, she was 4. I think she was 4. And yeah, she was 4 years old, that's right. And so we're starting to pound the neighborhood. There was 2 of us on. And, of course, we're telling dispatch, and so the chief hears it on the radio and the captain hears it, so everybody's coming out. And we're going door to door and asking if they've seen this kid and that. The mom had an alcohol problem and had passed out, didn't have any idea where the kid was.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so we're literally beating the bushes for this, and we're interviewing. I'm going door to door interviewing every kid in that neighborhood. Have you seen this little girl? When's the last time you seen her? And I remember talking to a 10-year-old girl, and she was very forthcoming about when she last seen her and very descriptive to the point where I was suspicious. And I'm like, something odd about her that makes me, it just made me spider sense tingle, And come to find out later that girl was heavily involved. But I'm talking to her, and she's like, oh, we've seen her in this field over here. And there was this big empty field, and, we only had a couple guys, so we had fire department out there trying to help us, and we're searching the field. And my FTO at that time, who had been my FTO, that officer's the one who found her. And she was down this embankment in a creek, and it was a fairly chilly night. It was probably in the 40s. And come to find out that this 10-year-old girl beat her up and threw her down that bank because she was following her and another kid and didn't want her tagging along. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness,
and
man.
a month earlier, that same 10-year-old girl had taken a baseball bat to someone at school and broke their arm.
No way.
Yeah, so it was really weird. And I just remember, that little girl didn't make it that night, but we found her. She was alive, but they tried to resuscitate her there on scene and did everything we could, but she didn't make it.
At that point in time, did you guys get any help? Like, does anybody talk about what's going on?
No, we talked about it like the next day, like, oh, that was crazy, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, okay, great, move on.
Really?
Back on the road. Yeah. So that one really affected me because, it hit a real deep home. I had younger sisters close to that age, and then, I was like, wow, that really.
And you just ate it?
Yeah, of course you did. That's what you did back then. You just went on.
Yeah.
And that's just how you reacted.
Yeah, like there's another call waiting.
We were supposed to be super tough back then, if you remember, right?
Yeah.
That's what they try to tell you, you got to be super tough and you just move on.
Yeah, I remember even when I first got into law enforcement, I remember the guy who was teaching like the mental preparation for law enforcement was just like, listen, you're going to see bad things in law enforcement. Here's a couple of these pictures. If you can't deal with it, this probably isn't the job for you.
Right.
And like that's not that long ago, dude. I've only been a cop 12 years. Like I can only imagine what you guys got, but it's like that is such an unrealistic expectation.
It is. It really
you
is.
cannot put that expectation on any man.
I should have told you this story earlier. My first night alone in Pacific. I mean, I am right out of field training. I'm talking like in the first week. And I get a midnight shift by myself. And, of course, what happens? We're busy as can be. I've been running all night, domestics, and had a house fire. I had a sudden death. Okay, and I'm just finishing up with that. I had to go to I think another domestic at like 5 in the morning, And finally, here comes like 6:30, and I'm like, oh my God, this has been a rough night, you know? And then I get a call for a baby not breathing.
Oh.
And it was, you know, typically you show up there. It was the first time I ever did CPR, was on that baby.
Really?
Yeah. And, you know, baby didn't make it, but it was another thing. Parents sleeping in bed with the parents.
Oh, co-sleeping?
Yep.
Man. I talked about this on Scott's. I interviewed Pierce last week, and we talked about he did a lot of crimes against children, but my wife would always think I was insane because I'd be like, do not put that baby in our bed. They sleep in their own crib. Like, you know, we just were exposed. You were overexposed to bad things.
Exactly, and you just worry so much.
That was your first shift on your own?
That was my first midnight shift by myself, yep.
Again, no resorces. Everybody's like,
no,
oh, sorry,
nothing.
bro.
No, yeah. Oh, you had a busy night, huh? Okay, great. See you tomorrow.
Oh, God.
But, yeah, that's just... I almost forgot about that. They were talking about it, and things started popping back in my memory that I probably have suppressed, you know, and push that out. That's kind of crappy. You don't want to tell nobody about that.
Well, that's what we all do, man.
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty as every other dude. That, you know, like we were talking today. I was teaching defensive tactics, and we're talking today, and somebody brings up a guy who jumped in front of an 18-wheeler right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And to be 100% honest, didn't ever think about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, you remember when that guy jumped in front? I'm like, oh, yeah, man, I do remember that. And it's like, same thing, I think you know, I don't think this is the right way to deal with it, obviously, but I think there's a part of you that just is like, it's really bad. I don't want to think about it.
Right.
So
we're just going to shut that off
bury
over
it down here. And
I'll shut it off over in this corner and just walk over here.
And if I don't think about it long enough, it'll go away.
It didn't exist, right?
Yeah. Thanks for hanging in there to the end of the episode, guys. As you can tell, there's more from Charlie, and here's a sneak peek from next week's episode.
I'm going to take the AR, I'm going to download it, I'm going to stash it under the bed in here and put the mag in my pocket. So it's unloaded, you know, out of the way. We're going to grab this dude, be over. All right, so she calls him and says, you know, I want to come over, I want you to talk, you know. We had no idea he was in the apartment right next door. Okay, here it is, June 1st.
How did he get in the apartment next door?
He knew the guy there, and the guy was hiding him out.
Really?
Yeah. So no sooner did she hang up the phone, he's coming in the rear sliding door. There's a big deck, and all the apartments there had sliding doors. He's coming in that sliding door. It's June 1st. It's like 90 degrees outside. He's in a Carhartt hoodie jacket with the hood up and comes in shooting.
The 1078 Project podcast is proudly sponsored by Deemed Fit. Deemed Fit is an activewear and a leisure company created for first responders. Be a part of their movement to instill confidence, motivation, and a willingness to keep pushing forward. Deemed Fit is a first responder-owned company looking to help first responders and their friends stay as physically and mentally fit as possible. Stay Deemed Fit.